So really what we're going to talk about today is how to take the business that you're already doing today, if you're doing commercial real estate investment sales, and expand that into a market that's really adjacent to it. You've probably heard of the term land and expand, right? If you tackle one market, you develop the skill sets in one market, then it's really easy to move laterally into another market where all the requirements are effectively the same, but now you're going into a much bigger market. So it's kind of an exciting opportunity. A lot of you have probably heard about a lot of the institutional interest in single-family investment properties as of late, and all of that. There's just a strong interest in these types of properties. For one, they're very liquid, right? It's a type of property that you can usually sell pretty quickly, as opposed to stuff that I was selling like a strip center. There's fewer buyers for those. So there's more of them, and they're more liquid. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how you can take your business and take advantage of this new data set. So it's probably worth noting here, right, that Prospect now we're collecting, whereas before we were collecting maybe 16 million commercial and multifamily properties. Now we have 100 million properties, with the emphasis on the rental homes. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's just go ahead and get started. So before I get into too much detail, for those of you who have never heard of us and don't know who I am and don't know who Prospect Now is, just a quick little background here. So the company was started in 2008, and as I mentioned before, it was really started out of this need to do what? To contact true property owners that can make decisions about signing a listing agreement. That's really what this is all about. It's helping you, the end user, get more signed listing agreements. And that's every feature we build into this thing. Everything we've ever done is always focused on that. We ask that question: is this feature going to help our customer get more listings? And if the answer is yes, we put it in. If not, we don't bother with it. And because of that, we've developed a very focused and targeted solution. So we're here in Northern California. The company's rapidly growing. We're growing about 40% annually right now. Company's profitable, and our primary investor is the founder of LoopNet, Dennis DeAndre. So he started LoopNet in '95 and then invested in Prospect Now in 2008. And we've got over 2,000 customers at virtually every firm out there on the commercial real estate side, as well as lending institutions as well. So that's just a little bit of background on us, and we exist to answer this question, right? How can we find more for sale listings? And the reason I like to focus on the listing side of the business is, if you're especially in the market we're in Northern California, if you're representing buyers, right, there's so much risk there, because the buyer at the end of the day can decide not to proceed or proceed, right? If a deal blows up, the seller has the property, the buyer has the buyer's cash, the listing agent has the listing, and the buyer's agent has nothing, right? Unless you have a buyer's rep agreement, which those are still pretty hard to get, right? So this is about a listing focused type of business. And what's really interesting about this is all of the skills that there's a lot of folks on this call today that probably do multifamily, have done some commercial, and there may be folks actually the other way around too that do single family homes and want to get into the investment side. But the point is that if you're doing the investment side now and you're focusing on that investment side of the business, there's a whole world out there that candidly I never paid much attention to when I was doing commercial real estate on the single family home side, but it really became clear to me how substantial and how big this world is when we started running counts on how many properties out there were rentals, okay, non-owner occupied. So just as an example, as I mentioned to you earlier in the webinar, we were getting requests to expand the data set, right? And my initial reaction to that was, well, why? Why do we want to do that? And so then I started running some counts and doing some analysis. And it's fascinating, but if you look, like we did an analysis of the properties in our database, the single-family home properties that are non-owner occupied, and it's 16.5%. So that means that approximately you're looking at over 10 million single-family rental homes, right, in the U.S. I mean, that's a massive market, and it is different, right? It is different. The use case, what the buyer or the seller wants in dealing with a property like that is very different from what a homeowner wants. They're two totally different things, and I would argue that what that investor wants is very similar to what the investor of a 50-unit property wants, and that is a substantial internal rate of return, right? That's what they're looking for. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this business is if you're just starting in real estate, for example, a lot of times it's like, well, what do I do? How do I get going? Where do I start? Well, the thing that's neat about this single-family rental market is that the owners are less, it's more of a numbers game. They're less attached to the property, right? They look at it, really, they're looking at their return on equity, they're looking at their cash flow, and bottom line is if you can, exchange them into something that's, has a better return, like a triple net property or something of that nature, they're going to listen to you. And so because of that, that was one of the reasons, one of the things I really loved about commercial real estate was that it was driven by business rather than emotion. I mean, still emotion plays a large role, but less so on the commercial and investment side. And so what we're talking about now is think of it almost as your market expanding by 10 million properties that are in this investment space. And so incidentally, if you're a Prospect Now user, you have this data. Okay, that's the other reason we're doing these webinars, is because you probably woke up one morning. In fact, we officially went live August 1st on this. And the data set was expanded. You logged in, and suddenly you probably noticed there was a lot more properties in there. So at any rate, the opportunity is there, and what we've noticed is there's not a lot of investment sales brokers out there tooling their business up to this market, or even focusing on it. So as a result of some of these webinars, it's kind of interesting. We've seen some of our customers start to develop a strategy around this. And the thing is that's so great about this is there's just so many of them, right? So if you take out of 1,000 single-family rentals, you're going to have a percentage that want to sell, right? So then the next piece of that is really finding the folks that are more likely to sell. So this is fascinating. We did a study. When it comes to marketing, you really the marketer and the person being marketed to have something in common, and that is neither of them want to waste each other's time. The marketer doesn't want to waste his or her time reaching out to a property owner that doesn't want to sell, and the seller, if you're not a seller, you don't want to bother or waste your time talking to somebody that's trying to convince you to sell, right? So we both want the same thing, and that is to get in and target the likely sellers. In a perfect world, what you want to do is before the seller is even thinking of selling, you're on the phone or you're presenting to them, right? That's really where you want to be in an ideal world. Well, we can't read people's minds, but we can start to use data to target the higher probability sellers. And I'm going to walk you through some of this actually when I go through the demo. But we did this. We did a survey here, and that's what you're looking at on your screen. So we sent this out to a large number of real estate agents, primarily investment sales folks, and asked them, why did your last seller sell their property? And I thought this was really interesting because we actually sent this out, and the first answer there, you've got other, okay, but then the one below that is retiring and wanted to downsize. That wasn't even an option, right? So basically what we did is we took a survey of different, an impromptu verbal survey, and said, hey, what do you think are some reasons why people sell? And so we came up with all these reasons and put them as possible answers in the survey. And the first one there, retiring and wanted, wasn't even in the first survey. So when we started seeing people type that in the comments section of the survey, we shut it down, put it in as an answer, and then re-sent it out so that we were getting the stuff that people were actually responding with. And so we did that for a few others as well. And so it's really interesting is what you could see is that there are some pretty consistent reasons why people will want to sell, exchanging into a bigger property, tired of managing the property. And I'm going to show you some specifics on how you can start to target some of these things with the data that we have. For example, retiring and wanted to downsize. We can figure out how long they've owned the property. Tired of managing the property. Well, maybe the distance between where they live and where the property is has something to do with that. They're tired of driving across town, or maybe it's an out-of-state owner. I found that the cash out due to market conditions, that's actually the hardest one to predict, because everybody wants cash, right? So that one's the hardest one to figure out. And I think it's also related to flipping the property for more profits. But the point is this, that there's so much data out there now, and obviously Prospect Now covers a ton of real estate data, that we can start to focus and target the probabilities. You've probably heard me talk before about owners that own multiple properties. Well, now that we have all these single-family homes, we can see there are a lot of investors out there that own 5, 10, 20, 30 single-family homes. And I have to say, when I was doing commercial real estate, I probably never would have called one. It wouldn't have even crossed my mind to call one of those guys. But if I could call one guy that owns 30 properties, that's the equivalent of making 30 calls, right? And the other thing that's nice about that is that that they're thinking from a business perspective. So this is a business focused or mindset that we have here. So anyway, this was a real eye opener, and so you can actually look. We put this on our blog. You can go to our blog and see more of the responses and a deeper explanation. But the point is, there are reasons why people sell. In fact, one of the I talk about this in a separate webinar, but just as a quick aside, one of the first deals I remember I did was I called this shopping center owner, and I asked him if he wanted to sell, and he said, no, I'm never selling. I don't sell. That's not what I do. And I said, okay, I understand. I get that you're not selling, but, I'm going to be in the area. Maybe I could just come by and show you some stuff on the market, or, introduce myself. And I got there, and, the guy started telling me all about the partnership issues that he was having. And that's the fifth one down there, the 6.5%. Now, again, that's a tough one to figure out, except to go down and meet the guy. Some of this stuff we can't use data to predict, right? But the point is that getting out there, getting the meetings, you can uncover these reasons why people are selling. So it's good to know what they are, regardless. So, okay, let's say that you've got a business plan in place now, and you want to start getting after it. Well, what do you do? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people on this call are familiar with this, with what you see on your screen here, this process, right? This is what I did, in the absence of Prospect Now. And it was the process of going to all these different data sets to get the information that I needed to run my business. And specifically what I needed was the decision maker for the property. Now, a lot of these single-family rental properties are owned in LLCs, right, which makes it hard to find out who the owner is. So, you can go to one database and get all the property data. You can go to another database and get all the corporation's data. If it's a commercial property like an office building, then you can go to another database and get the tenant data, phone numbers, emails, all this kind of stuff. And so that data research process is really that's a precursor. That's the price of entry, right? I mean, just to be able to get going and get in the business, that's a lot of work. And so when I was going through that, it wouldn't be so bad if I had to do this linear process of search the address, LLC, person, phone, call the phone, verify it, and put it in a CRM tool. But the reality is, you got to do it a number of times, right? So the way I was trained was 1,200 times, because you want 1,200 properties in the database. You assume an average turnover of 10% a year. So that's 120 properties are going to trade out of those 1,200. So then, okay, if you're a good broker, you can get 10% of those. Now, what's neat about this specific expansion into the single-family rental space is that now you could you could bump that. In some cases, you know, maybe there are only 1,200 office buildings if that's your focus in a given area. Well, now there's so many single-family homes, right? So if you can market to them efficiently, direct mail and all of the other approaches with the investment mindset, you're improving your you know, your probabilities even more. But you know, as a rule of thumb, 1,200 is a minimum, right? And 1,200 what? 1,200 solid contacts that you know are guys that are in the business, you know, with a correct phone number and the correct decision maker and all the assets that they own and all of that. So you know, all of that is a lot of work. And so, you know, what we've done is we've expanded this into a single database so that you don't have to go through all this, right? And as I mentioned, we basically went from 16 million properties to 100 million properties, and that's virtually everything. I mean, there may be a few counties here and there that we don't have, but for the most part, it's a nationwide coverage. So all of that's available in a single, you know, data set. And what our goal here for our end user is to eliminate that manual research so that you don't have to go to all these different data sets. So we'll take all these different data sets, combine them, standardize them, normalize them, clean them up, right? Put them into a single database, and then make them available to you on the internet. Incidentally, you know, one thing that is also worth noting is we do, if you're using, you know, we have a built-in contact manager into Prospect Now. So a lot of our customers use that as their CRM, but if you have another CRM like Salesforce.com or one of those, we can integrate to that as well. So I actually need to update my slide here because I've got it, you know, on the mobile here and on Excel, but also it'll go into other CRMs as well. So the point is to get you to the sellers really quickly and efficiently, and now we can do it as well for, you know, single-family homes. So let's talk a little bit about some of these searches that I would consider to be low-hanging fruit, right, where we have a higher probability. In fact, I'm going to show you a new search interface that we have called the guided search, which walks you through some of these searches so you don't even have to remember these or know the filters and the speeds and feeds and the dials that you have to do to make this happen. But multi-asset owners, we already talked about that. If I can make one call to somebody that owns 30 properties, it's like making 30 calls. If I send one mailer to somebody that owns 30 properties, it's like sending 30 mailers, right? My probabilities go up. Out-of-state owners, you know, the management thing, properties in foreclosure, properties where the loan is coming due. Now, that's not as common on single family, but on commercial, it's typically 5 years, 7 years. A loan's coming due. They're going to have to refinance, or they're going to have to sell, right? Or they're going to go into foreclosure. Non-owner occupied, right? Non-owner occupied single-family homes. Properties that were listed in the MLS, for example, and now are expired. Well, we have a multi-address search, so you can download all of those properties from your MLS that were expired, paste them into Prospect Now, and instantly get all the contact information for the property owners. Super powerful. And the last one's 1031 exchange buyers. Well, what about people that just sold, right? All of these are ways to target high probability sellers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to walk you through this guided search interface. And a lot of you have probably noticed that this is a new, when you log in, this is a new interface here. So it says start here, guided search. What would you like to do? Okay, so I'm going to just say I want to build a list of properties. So this other one here, I'm actually just going to show you this real quick. To find multiple properties from my list of addresses, this is what I was just talking about. All you have to do is take, you know, you could take your list of property addresses from, you know, your MLS or wherever you're getting it and just literally paste them in here and then click search and you're in business, right? That's all you have to do, and then you can just click next here and you're done. So if you put in, you know, 2 addresses, actually, you know, I'll just give you a quick example. So let's see here. Okay, you get the point, right? So that's like what the format should look like. So you can do that. You can just put a couple addresses in here, or you can literally copy up to 1,000 at a time from a file. Okay, so if you had all the expireds, then you're going to get all that information. So that's how that works. But what we're going to do here is we're going to build a list from scratch. Okay, so I'm going to click next here. And what's the objective? Okay, the objective is to do what? I want to find sellers. So now this is where the system will suggest which searches may give you a higher probability. Okay, so I'm going to go next. Okay, and then I'm going to choose a county. I'm going to say, all right, Santa Clara happens to be where I am. Okay, and we'll go next. Okay, now, how do I want, in terms of location, right? So now I'm talking about the area. I could do a radius, I could do zip codes, cities, area on a map. I'm actually going to do an area on a map just to demonstrate this. And what we'll do is I'm just going to click on my little polygon icon here, and we'll just search an area. Okay, just kind of make it arbitrary here. Okay, so now, this is another new feature, incidentally. There's 6,600 results just in that polygon. Okay, so now I'm going to refine them. So what do I want to do? Now, I can refine just a commercial, and if I do that, it takes me down to 171. See that? That's real time. Or I can undo that. I could say, okay, I just want to do, I'm going to do single family. Okay, and there's going to be a ton, obviously. So this would be the single family search. In fact, let's do that one. A lot of you, if you've been on webinars before, you've probably seen all the multifamily and the commercial stuff. But these are the property types, okay? So I'm going to do single family, and then I can filter by a lot of different things here. So this is where shortcuts for finding sellers, okay? So owners with multiple properties. Let's just try that one. 684. That's pretty cool. So out of the 4,683, right? You can see up here, owners with multiple properties takes me to 684. Kind of makes sense, right? You know, if it's commercial, owners with loans coming due makes sense. This is obviously just residential. So another one would be out-of-state owners. You know, that takes me, if I say out-of-state owners that own multiple assets, that takes me down to 3. Remember, it's just in that polygon, right? So you get the point. You can do a lot of filtering in here. If you're a lender, you know, if you suggested, hey, I wanted to find borrowers, then you would have your shortcuts for finding borrowers, and it would find owners with high interest rates and things of that nature. Super powerful. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually say owners with multiple properties. And remember, this is important, right? I want the non-owner occupied. Okay, so that takes me down to 326, which kind of makes sense. That's an interesting stat there, is that half of the property owners that had more than one asset, neither of them were owner occupied, which makes sense, right? A very high percentage if you have more than one. Okay, so now I've got my 326 that I want to get after, and then you could filter by size and loan amount and all this kind of stuff, but I just want to illustrate the point here. So I got my 326. I'm going to click next. I could save that search there, and here we are, right? So we're in business. Okay, so you can see that this guy John Fox, for example, he's got 4 properties, right? And same with this guy Marvin Williams. So that's how the system works. Now, if I wanted to, okay, remember all these are non-owner occupied, right? So most of these folks are going to have a business mindset here in terms of the way these properties, the way they think of these properties. Here's a guy. Oh, that's the Salvation Army. Actually, it looks like they own a bunch of single-family homes. But yeah, so you get the point here, right? Look at all this data, and now I could do a couple of things, right? I could call these guys. I could mail them, or I could do some kind of combination, in between. So let's say, for example, I wanted to build a list, okay, of phone numbers for these guys. So I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to select a few of these. Okay, and once I select a few, I can click send mail. I could download these, or I could get phone numbers for them. I'm actually just going to get some phone numbers here just to show you how this works. And then I'm also going to show you the mailing piece. So this is a direct marketing tool, right? That's the objective here, is we want to get to the true decision maker. You can see most of these here actually are owned personally. I'll actually show you an example of stuff that's actually owned in LLCs as well. But okay, so here's John's phone number, right? Now, incidentally, the other thing that we've also added is we've added a complete mechanism here to do this in a compliance with the do not call list, right? So if you're calling business to business, obviously that's exempt from the do not call list. Like you can see this John Fox Construction, this phone number that we have for him is his business number, okay? So business numbers are exempt from the do not call list. But if you are calling people for, you're calling them at their place of residence, we have an option here to set up the do not call flagging. You just click on this and follow the steps, and then we're going to flag all the phone numbers on the do not call list as well. So that's a super powerful feature as well. The amazing thing is not everybody's on the do not call list, right? And again, I think most of our customers are doing business to business calling, so it doesn't apply. But if you are calling, single-family residences, you have a way to do it in a compliant fashion. And obviously, we encourage everybody to follow the rules and do it the right way. So we've provided a mechanism to do that. So at any rate, we've got the phone number here, okay, for John's construction company. We can drill down and learn more about his company here if we wanted to. We can see, what they do, all this kind of stuff, drill down on his LinkedIn profile, all of that. And if I want to, then I can call this guy. I can click, save here, and this is where I could put it in Salesforce if I wanted to, or I could also just type in some notes here and say, good lead wants to sell, and save this. Okay, so that's the piece on the phone, right? So then you go to the next one, and it's going to show, okay, now John's yellow, right? Now the other piece too is I could send mail here. So if I wanted to send mail, I could just click on this send mail. I just selected all these properties, and I'm going to click on a template, okay? So you can just create any template that you want. And once you create your template, it's pretty cool. You can go in here and start to do your mail merges. And you can see, hey, this is dear owner name. I wanted to reach out to you about your property address. I'm a commercial real estate broker, yada yada. Whatever you want to say, and then you just go through the next step here. And you got two options. You can go through here and look at all these letters that you're about to send, okay? And then if you look at one, like you can see, like pause is the first name here. But if you wanted to change it, you can edit the letter here, this specific letter, okay, just by clicking edit this letter, and it will edit it. And then once you've got everything just the way you want it, you have two options. You can download this, or you can click save and send out. Now this is pretty cool. So this is a new feature as well. What this will do is validate all the addresses, and then you can literally, from the comfort of your computer, okay, you can actually just send out the mail, and we will handle everything. Right, so the envelopes get stuffed, the postage gets, put on there, and it goes out in the mail. Okay, and what it looks like is you just download and proof your print job right before you do it, and we'll just handle it all for you. So, and we just have mail credits to do this, so you can go in and basically buy these mail credits. They're $1 each. And then you're done, right? So that's what that process looks like. If you want to send yourself one just to make sure that they're going out to the right place and you can proof it and all that, that's how it works. One thing I would advise here though is don't click send unless you are 100% sure you've got it exactly right? Because once we pay for the postage and do all that, it's over, right? It's going out in the mail, so that's just something to remember. But that is a new feature as well. So I find on the single-family side, mail is really powerful, right? Especially when people get market data and things of that nature. So that is an example of how you might do a non-owner occupied, single-family search where you're calling a business you know, a business number about a bunch of properties that a property owner owns. Okay, so that's the process. Now, one other thing I'm going to show you, just to give you a feel for those of you that are doing the commercial side of it. If you want to see what a commercial property looks like, okay, incidentally, all the data on these things are in these tabs here, right across the top. So you just roll through these tabs. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a search. I'm actually going to reset my search. I'm just going to pull up everything on a street, right? This used to be my territory over here, so I'm going to pull up everything on Lincoln Avenue, and we'll do, let's see, maybe we'll do all the commercial stuff. Commercial stuff on Lincoln Avenue. This is the advanced search interface, incidentally. And go ahead and search, see what we get. All right, so if you look at these, so here's all the 144 properties. Actually, somebody was just asking me today how you do this on a, you know, on a street here. So I like this because you can just go down the street, right? Now this is a commercial search, right? So I do this a lot on a lot of the other webinars, but still, I think for those of you that are looking to go the other direction, right, on the commercial side, it's pretty valuable to understand like what data is going to be there. So if you look at the data, what's really interesting about this is if you say like look at this one, Lincoln Avenue number 2, right? LLC. That's a classic ownership structure. But if you drill down here, we can see who the managing partner is and link to their LinkedIn profile. So Shirley DiNapoli and Michael Mulcahy are the managing partners of this Lincoln Avenue 2 LLC. That's so valuable. I mean, when I was doing this, like, if I didn't have that, what was I going to do? Call up and say, hey, can I talk to the owner of Lincoln Avenue 2 LLC? I mean, they're going to hang up on me, right? If I send my mail out, you know, it's just going to go to the LLC. It's probably going in the trash. In fact, I used to own a Starbucks property in San Jose, and at the time I had actually let my real estate license expire. So when it came time to hire a broker, I was amazed. I never got any mail. I never got, you know, any calls or anything, and that's because I had it in an LLC that was going to a PO box, and so I actually had to proactively go out and find a broker. And you know, from being on the other side of it, my perspective always was I always like to hire the guys that were motivated, right? That would be willing to, you know, pick up the phone and do what it takes to get a deal done. Because guess what? If they're willing to do that to get the listing, right, then they're gonna do that to get the listing sold, right? It's a great way to gauge a broker. It's like, how willing are they to go out and actually make a deal happen? You know, the other thing that I think is another kind of interesting aspect of this is that you can go into a listing presentation and actually show Prospect Now and say, hey, look what I'm going to do for you, Mr. Seller. Like, I've got a list here of every property on this street with the owner's contact info and their phone number and all the tenants and everything about that property. So, you know, I'm going to work really hard for you, Mr. Seller, whereas your competitor may or may not have that. One thing I know is that, you know, I'm gonna hammer through this and get a deal done for you. So that's actually another way to win a listing as well. So at any rate, hopefully that's valuable. That's kind of a quick tour of you know, what you can do in this new expanded data set here. So now I'm just going to pop back into my presentation and I want to leave you with a couple of interesting notes here, and that is really just what can be achieved. You know, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell is a gentleman by the name of Ken Hoff. He called me, let's see, about 6 months ago, and told me the story, you know, about, hey, Steve, you know, I'm not sure if you remember me, but, you know, I signed up for the product a year ago, and I wanted to just fill you in on what's happened in the last year. And so he developed a very efficient and astute business plan. Incidentally, I did an interview of him. It's on our YouTube channel of how he did this, how he closed this $275 million deal. Really interesting. I encourage you to go there and listen to it. You know, it's free. You can go listen to it. And he talks a lot about his process. He had a very disciplined process, very specific kind of voicemail that he would leave. And basically what he did was he was retained by a hedge fund that said, hey, we're gonna close on $300 million in multifamily, and he presented to them a way that he could dig up the deals for them, and he did. And so he closed one of the largest deals in last year in 2013, if not the largest multifamily deal, $275 million, and he did it by doing what I was just showing you, going out and with a disciplined approach and calling the likely sellers, right? And that's what he did. And so, we decided to do our own analysis internally with one of our customers to kind of make an analysis of what it would take, not, pie in the sky $275 million deal, but what if you run a disciplined marketing approach of mail, of calling, of all these things that you should be doing? What are the ratios here? And so we actually, for one of our customers, made calls on behalf of one of our customers here in Northern California, and devised a pitch for him and basically said, we're going to act as your assistant basically for the day and call our own data, right? And he said, obviously we didn't get any complaints from him. He said, great, this is fantastic. So we made 286 calls for him in a day, and it was a real simple pitch. It was like, hey, this is Tony calling from Dave Silverstein's office. Just wanted to reach out to you about your property. Dave's a real active retail broker in the area. Just want to see if you had any interest in selling or buying, or if you have any vacancy you need leased up or whatever it is. And we got him from that. We got him 5 meetings, and he closed 2 deals. And actually just met with him about 2 weeks ago, and he's working on the 3rd from that one day. And so the ratios that we came to was it took about 56 calls at this, obviously on this particular day with this particular data set in this area, et cetera, right? No guarantees, obviously. But what we learned was that it took about 56 calls to get a meeting. So this is just a numbers game, right? It's a numbers game. And the more effectively you can use technology and tools, the lower that number gets, right? We really, in a perfect world, we want it to be 1-to-1, right? You're calling the exact right person at the right time, et cetera. But that was what we discovered. So the point is, this is all doable. This is doable stuff. And it can be implemented, and you can succeed doing it. And one thing I will say too, just having a sales force here at Prospect Now, is that I have never seen, there's not a monopoly on personality type with successful salespeople. I've noticed that some successful salespeople are extroverts, others are introverts. All the personality type runs the whole gamut. So I think it's more about a disciplined approach to prospecting, and really that's what we're trying to encourage here. So having said that, that's going to go ahead and conclude the webinar for today. Now what I am going to do is, if anybody's got any questions here, you can type them in, and I will do my best to answer them. So if you want to just type in a question, hopefully I'll try and pick the ones that other people have as well, so that I can answer those. So go ahead and type those in. Here's a couple just kind of housekeeping items. I am recording this, so we will put this. A few people asked, can I get this recorded? So the answer is yes. I am recording this. We'll put this on our YouTube channel. I encourage you to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Then you'll just get updates when we add stuff on there, and you can see that there. So, okay, so here's a question about the mailing capability. Yeah, so it looks like Leslie just wanted to know more about the mailing capabilities. Yeah, so absolutely, Leslie. We can. The question is, how personalized can you get it? And the answer to that is whatever data we have in there is a data field you can pull off of the property record, and use in your mailer. So, for example, if you wanted to use the building square footage and say, I see that your property is X number of building square footage, size, you could do that. So whatever's there, can be used. Okay, so let's see. I'm looking for some other questions here. So I guess there's a few questions here about pricing. So I guess I'll just address that. If you're not a customer, I mean, the price of entry is really easy. It's $89 a month. Okay, month to month, no contract. So what that means is you can get one county of data for $89 a month, and you can use it as long as you want, or or otherwise. Okay, here's a question. Here's another question actually from Leslie about 1031. So the way we do that is we look at properties that just sold. So in that guided search, for example, there's an option in there that says properties and properties that just sold, and it will look. So we're updating this so often that we can see if somebody just sold an apartment building and then called the seller, right? Because they got 45 days to identify. So if we saw that they just sold it in the last 14 days, that's a great lead, right? And that's how we do it. So here's a question from Fabian, and he's asking, what's the difference between our database and a title company? That's a really good question, because I used a lot of title company data when I was in commercial real estate. The difference is, and in fact I'll just show you, if you look at a title record, you're just going to see Lincoln Avenue 2 LLC and the mailing address, and then you'll see the basic property information. So what you're going to see in Prospect Now is the same thing, plus, as I mentioned before, the managing partner of the LLC, the phone number for the managing partner and the owner, the tenants for the for that property, so all the businesses, and incidentally, that goes the other way. You could search, for example, by tenant. You could say, show me all the Jack in the Boxes. You can't do that with title records. So there's a lot of differences, actually. There's a built-in CRM. There's just a ton of differences. So personally, I found the raw title or tax roll data to be woefully inadequate, right, for what I was trying to do. And so that's how that works. Another question was, can you download the data to Excel with phone numbers? Yeah, absolutely. All you do is you go in here and you select the records, and then you just click export, right? And it'll put it into Excel, and you can do that. So, okay, let's see here. There's some good questions coming across here. I appreciate all the interest here, folks. Okay, here's a question from Rob. Are brokers doing well with, which is better, basically, start with a phone call or direct mail? Okay, I can only tell you my personal opinion on that in my own experience. We haven't surveyed our customers in that regard. That's a great question, and maybe we could find that out. I have found that if you send mail first and you lead the call with, hey, did you get the mailer that I sent you, then they're just going to say no, even if they did, right? And then it's like, okay, well, I'll put it in next week, and I'll call you next week, or call me back after I've had a chance to read it. So I think it's call first and then send mail. But that's my opinion. So I don't have any solid data on that. But that's that's been my experience. Okay, so I think that should do it for today. There are some other questions. I apologize. It looks like we're running out of time here, and I apologize if I haven't been able to, to get to everybody here. But you certainly are welcome to call us, incidentally. Our phone number is 888-956-9998. And again, if you want, the easiest thing to do is to go on. You can do like a free trial, or you can talk to one of our sales folks. And if you have a specific property you want to see or what have you. But yeah, the opportunity is there, and now that Prospect Now has expanded our data set to all the single-family rental properties, tons of opportunity out there. So happy prospecting. Thanks a lot for taking the time, and best of luck.